All right, guys. Welcome to podcast. I think this is our sixth or seventh one here. So today we have Will Kojdich with us. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Kojdich.
Kojdich.
You say better than Kaplan.
Listen, we had a call this morning, and you brought it up, and everybody said it 14 different ways, and they were like, "All right."
Just Will K.
Will K to the podcast. I'm going to talk about a lot of things today, Will. Will's been a loan officer for Crown/Absolute now for I've known you for 5 years. Yeah. You started right around when I started with Absolute.
Not going to say they got a lot better that day, but I'm not going to say they didn't.
No, so we've known each other for a while, worked closely together on a bunch of projects and different stuff. And, not only are you loan officer, but you head up all the training for the Crown team, and you've obviously helped us on the Absolute side as well. Mm-hmm. So, needless to say, Will is one of the most professional, well-knowledged loan officers that I've met in the business, and
thank you for that.
Really understands the craft, quest to learn the craft, and takes it seriously. So it's a breath of fresh air, and it's been a great example for the team. So I wanted to have him on today. I don't think many people know about your kind of origin story, how you got into the business, kind of what drives you, and let's talk a little bit about that, and then kind of go into some of your kind of new endeavors and what you, kind of what you're passionate about today. And we'll talk about some health and wellness stuff, because I know you're big into that now as well with supplements and the gym. So love to touch on a lot of that.
Okay.
Let's start out with kind of origin story. How'd you get into? Not everybody has a plan of getting into the mortgage business when they leave high school or college, and what kind of got you rolling?
Yeah, I think anytime you talk to a successful loan officer, a real estate agent or something, they never went to school to do that, right? They had some other crazy story and it didn't work out, and they landed here and it just worked out.
Or somebody reeled them in.
Exactly. So I was reeled in. Now, so I went to school for criminal justice.
So did I.
Yeah. Got my degree, loved the field, wanted to ultimately be a DEA agent and bust down drug houses, and that's what I wanted to do my whole life. After college, I had to take the civil service test. Civil service test only runs every couple of years. So in the midst of graduating, I've always been in the restaurant industry prior to that since I was 13. So while I was in college, that's what kept money coming in, was the restaurant business. I hated doing it, but it was good, quick money.
When you say restaurant business, were you
bartender, manager, pretty much did everything from dishwashing all the way up through the years. So 10 years into that, I'm 23, and, I guess at the time I was 21 or whatever, done with school. And my uncle at the time, who ran a mortgage branch, just recently had, one of his top people leave. And it was somebody that he groomed from the beginning. He ends up leaving, and that day I went to him and I was like, I think I could do what he did. Right. So he was like, all right. And what I didn't think about it was, I'm working for my uncle. It'd be cool. It's kind of like a father-son relationship. But what I didn't think about was how tough it would be, I guess, at the time. And we'll kind of touch on that. But ultimately he said, hey, listen, I'd love to get in the business. And he's like, okay. He knew I was in the restaurant business forever. He knew I could hustle, and I know I could make a quick buck. Right. So, started with him for, I think it was $20,000 a year. I got paid to be his full-time assistant. So I worked 9 to 5 doing that. When I wasn't doing that, I was working bar shifts from, 5 o'clock till 2 o'clock in the morning. Right. So, what I loved about it though, is while I was at the office 9 to 5, that's all I had to focus on. So while I was there, I learned how to get VOEs, to what every loan officer was doing wrong, to just listening. And then while doing all of that, I also sat with Bobby as he did every application, every pre-approval, so I could just be a sponge.
So you were a loan officer, assistant at the time?
Yep. So, and really not just for him, but kind of for the branch. And then I would just, if Bobby was busy, I was sitting with Sharon or sitting with another processor and just learning from anybody that I could. And one of the things that I've kind of loved about every profession I've jumped into is I want to know what everyone's doing. It's just a curiosity thing for me. Yep. That I want to just see how everybody operates, right? And see all right, well, what makes that go to here and then that go to the next one? And this is just kind of how I've always been. I want to see the formula.
Yeah.
So it was the same way with there. And, I was continuing to do that, liked it. But the one negative side to it is I couldn't pass the LO test. So to me, I was not bad in school. Like high school was, kind of boring to me. When I got to college, I had a 4.0 because I loved what I was doing with criminal justice. So then when I hopped onto this side, I was like, yeah, I know the test is hard. I'll study for it. And I'll tell you, I studied for that test probably more in 6 months than I probably studied my entire high school and college career, of just actually sat down and studied relentlessly. First time I got a 68. Second time I got a 73. Third time I got a 68. Now, meanwhile, I'm working for the top producer of the company who also happens to be family, and they're like, this kid cannot pass the test.
Yeah. Well, the hard part about the test is that it's all regulatory, right? It has nothing to do with the day to day.
Nothing. So I'm in the office 9 to 5, like being like, wait a minute, I know more than all these people. How do they have a license and I can't?
Yeah.
Because you're right. It's
a lot of like memorization of Reg B, Reg C, what's HMDA, what, there's very little in the test is like practical application of your day-to-day job, right? It's regulatory oversight for the most part.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate. I deal with that every day, right, in my role. So like that part of the test was like pretty natural to me, but I totally see how like an LO coming in has like, if you haven't been in that side of it, like there's not really a reason to, like, you understand the logic behind the rules and like, hey, TRID is this and you have to get disclosures out in a certain amount of time and all that. But like what it's called and why it's called that and what part of the regulation it comes out of.
Yeah, when it was
tough.
established, like, and then on top of that, it's, the endless acronyms in our business.
Yeah.
That just totally confused me. And it's like, I feel like I would get that down pat. I would do the practice test, do everything. But then it was like the pressure side that then started to build up, right? Because when I would fail the test, I would then drive from the test, go back to my 9 to 5 as a full-time assistant, when everyone's like, oh, how'd the test go? How'd the test go? And you're like, stop. So 3 times of failing it, and this is before the rule changed. So now the rule is if you fail it 3 times, you got to wait a year. You got to redo your 20 hours of continuing ed, of pre-ed, all that stuff.
Sure.
Back then, it was after 6 months you fail, you have to wait, I guess 6 months to take it again. And if you time it right, you pretty much have like one shot to get it before you have to redo the test. So in the midst of that, I'm an assistant now almost, 8 months, and I can't pass the test. Finally, it comes around again. And I only told one person I was actually like, hey, they knew kind of like the time lapse, so they just didn't know when I was going to take it because this was like my last real chance. And I remember, the day I go into the office and I know I'm leaving to go take the test. And I wrote on a Post-it note to my good friend Sharon, who's like another mom to me. And I wrote on there, like, today's the day I passed my tests. And I left her the Post-it note, and that was my way of telling her. So I leave the office. Everyone's like, where'd Will go? And I just disappeared. And she looked down and she found the Post-it note. She still has the Post-it note to this day. And I was like, I'm going to pass the test this day. So I go to the test and I'm getting a 93. A lot of that had to do in those 6 months of that I did it, like actually took, training on how to take a test. Like not even the mortgage test itself,
That's
but take tests.
Yeah.
Normally people use it for the SATs and stuff. So I ended up taking that just for like the psychological side of it and how to keep a rhythm during the test. Got a 93. Great. Now I got my license. Well, now go sell. So at this point, I'm like a year in the business. I know so much about everything, but I've never sold anything. Right. And I'm also a buzz cut kid who also wants to become a cop. So I'm clean cut, never been in trouble. And now I'm, going out to real estate agents trying to get their business, but I look like I could be their son's friend, right? So that was the next challenge. I could have all the knowledge in the world, but how do I let people let me in?
You're young, yeah.
Yep. So I'm facing that challenge, and at the same time, the civil service comes back around. So now I just passed this test finally with a 93. I took all this test taking courses and all that stuff. So now I go in the civil service, 3-hour test, 400 questions, go through it, wait for the results to come in. And now I start to sell, start to get better at it. I got a couple of referral partners that trust me through, relationships and stuff. And next thing you know, I'm closing not a lot of business, 1 loan every month, but it's, it's getting me out of the restaurant business, right? Because if I can close 1 or 2 loans, I no longer have to work the weekends, right? Yeah. So finally kind of getting out of that, getting strictly into just the mortgage side, and I get my civil service test results back. And I was like, well, if I didn't do good on that test for 4 times, like it took 4 times, how am I going to do good on this? Well, I open it up, I got a 99.210, which is one of the top 1% in the state. Pretty much can go anywhere to get hired. And I'm like, well, now I have a decision. So now it's either go become a town cop, which I kind of wanted to start out, and then obviously, eventually get into the DEA after that, or stick to what I'm doing. Now, I know you can make a lot of money doing this. You're safe. At the time, That was around the time where body cameras became super popular. So it's like you're always watching the news, you're seeing all this stuff happen, and then you're seeing people get fired, and obviously they're doing things they shouldn't be doing and stuff, and you're just like, I don't know if that's why I wanted to become a cop. Like I wanted to become a cop because I wanted to help people, right? And ultimately I was like, I kind of like helping people, like, you know, and it sounds so cliche, like buy a house, right? Achieve home ownership, and that's always the sale. But it was nice to like have people come to you and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I give them all the answers. They close, and they're like, wow, thank you. You guided us through the hardest time of our life and the biggest purchase, and it works. So at that point, I decided, you know, I sat down with Bobby, and I was pretty much just like, I want to do this full time. I don't want to become a cop anymore. And all he said was, you got to fund your own retirement. And I was like, that is perfectly fine with me. So at that point, I just jumped into mortgages full time. I think my first year in the business, I might have closed like, you know, 3 to 4 million. Then it was 10 million. Then it was, you know, 15, then 23, 35. The best year I had was 50. Obviously that you're talking like 2020, 21.
Yeah, COVID years.
And then back to, you know, 30 seems to kind of be the average, right? That it ends up falling every year. So
you had a lot of growth. Like even the, you know, the COVID bubble of things where rates went down, everybody kind of did more business there. But like you didn't come all the way back down. You know, you had a lot of growth. If you look at, you know, 19 to now 23, 24, you still had growth, which was, you know, impressive.
Well, yeah, it was a lot of using, you know, I was always purchase driven, which was great because I know refis are almost what we call like fun money, right? Because they'll come and go. They may fall apart in the middle of a transaction of an appraisal or something. But if you keep the purchase side of things, you never go broke.
It's consistent.
Yeah.
It's definitely more consistent. What do you think was the hardest part of kind of breaking into the sales side of the business?
So breaking into that part, it's, you know, to me, it was I could, you know, I would do free trials to MBS Highway, and people that know MBS Highway, it's pretty much what loan officers can go on to get all their news sources in one spot. So I remember, because I didn't want to pay the $800 subscription for the year, I would go on and do a free trial for 2 weeks. I would study everything, and then I would go try to sell a loan. And I kept constantly doing that and coming up with all these fake emails, but it taught me enough about the business where I can tell you what's going on with the market. I knew all my guidelines. Now it was going to open houses and getting somebody who's 40 years old or 50 years old, been in the business 20 years, to get them to trust me, right? And the only thing I had was my knowledge. So it's like once I would actually get them to talk to me and they could see like, all right, wow, this person knows what he's doing. All I had to do was wait for their person to mess up. I could come in and save the day to ultimately lead to that person trusting me, then their friend, then their friend, then their friend. And it's just cultivated over the years of being what it is.
Yes, I've seen a big shift as well, kind of like, at least with my own business, right? Because I still, not that I'm out there selling every day like, you know, you guys are, I still take on deals here and there, right? One of the big things for me has been, I don't sell. I'm just knowledgeable about what I do and how I do it and what it takes to do it. And I think the average consumer now responds very well to that, right? They don't want to be like sold, right? It's not like, you know, they don't want that I'm going to a car lot feel, right? They want to know that the person that they're dealing with is providing them guidance, knows the products, knows and can help guide them on like, hey, what's best for me in this situation? I mean, there's thousands of products now, right? Like there's all these different loan scenarios, and obviously having the knowledge set to kind of talk them through that and coach them through it and show it is all you really need to do to get that confidence. And that helps from not only your referral source standpoint, right? Working with your realtors and CPAs and contractors and all that stuff, but the borrowers themselves, they just have like a more immediate comfort level. I mean, I think you operate probably similar to I do. It's like, I'm literally trying to help and coach these people through it. And you know, sometimes it's difficult because they've never done this before, right? And they're super nervous, and they think they're being sold something because that's what they were heard, right? Or they see the Rockets of the world, or you know, some of these other like big shops that are just churning through business, where we're such more of a personal touch. Like we're here to like advise and work through the situation with the client.
Well, and that's the thing too, right? So it's like, you know, let's say they ended up calling Rocket or like an AmFed, and they're like, oh, well, they're giving me, you know, this rate. And I'm like, well, you don't know the other person on the other side of the phone, right? Most likely in a call center. I'm like, would you, and I always pretty much compare myself to a financial advisor, right? I'm helping you get this loan, which is going to be your biggest asset that you probably have and will have for your whole life. And then after you close, I'm going to guide you every 3 months through the next steps and making sure you're managing that asset the best you can. That person in a call center, they're making $50, $100 to close your loan. You're never going to hear from them again. So if you were going to take $100,000 and invest it into a bank, but you only could talk to that person one time, would you trust them? And then once people kind of break down to that, now don't get me wrong, there's some people that literally want the cheapest deal possible. They don't care about anything else. And that is what it is. But 9 out of 10 of the people, they want the guidance, the hand holding. Obviously, we're not hitting anybody over the head. They're still getting a good deal. But just they want the nurturing comfort where you can talk to their parents and their parents are like, all right, I trust this guy, go with him. And then you're golden. So.
Of course. Yeah. I think that there's an aspect to that, right? Of, you always have to be competitive. There's no way not to be.
Yep.
It makes me scratch my head sometimes when I see the loan officers that are, saying, "Oh, I have to make this per deal," right? And I'm just like, how is that even possible? Like, I know my clientele and I'll do business, in a lot of different states, especially friends down in Florida or the Carolinas. Like, you just don't. Like, I just don't feel like you even have that opportunity, nor do I think that it's a good way to do business, right? And so, like, staying really competitive is important. It doesn't mean that you have to be like a discount brokerage, right?
Yep.
Like, we operate a little bit of a different model than that, where it's a lot more high touch, a lot more personalized. We have a lot more products. We're providing a higher level of service. And obviously there's a cost associated with it, but we still have to be very competitive, which I think we achieve in most cases.
Yep.
So where do you think you are currently? Like, what, obviously you and I work a lot together, and you kind of drift a little bit to the operations side. I think naturally you just find yourself geared towards that a bit, right? And that's sort of where you started, being on that LOA side. But what do you kind of see now as you've matured in the business and your book of business is growing, and obviously it takes up a lot of your time? Like, where's your main focus today?
So my main focus is actually still in the growth phase of, like, the one thing I've learned in this business is you could be in this business for 30 years, or you can be in this business, for 30 years, but changing every year, right? So even though I've been in the business, 8 years and I've been successful, every month already with me mentally, it's like when the first comes, you're right back to 0 loans. And I think that's a lot of people that are in sales.
Yeah.
But it's, it's every year of being like, all right, what can I fine tune? What didn't work last year? Because, especially during 2020, 21, anybody could do, not saying that anybody could do what we did, but there was really no strategy to it, right? Yeah. Loans just fell in your lap. You offered a rate that was way better than something that they've had before, and they just closed with you.
Yeah.
Where now it's, now it's really shining, like your skills shine in this market, and that's for real estate agents and for us. So what I've done this year is completely revamped, new agents that I've gone after. If I look at all the agents that I do business with right now, some of them were doing 5 to 10 deals a year, where now they're doing 1 to 2 deals. Life happens, things change, people have babies, they do whatever. So now it's like, all right, well, let me go pick up these other agents now. And then I do good by them, and then they're spreading the word and stuff. So this year was a big growth year for me of resetting the agents, kind of seeing, and not letting my other agents go by any means, but being like, all right, well, maybe I want to focus on this area because it's busy. Like, maybe it's Bergen County or whatever, and try to get business from different sources, where now it's not just, the same funnel of people. It's just because things change.
Sure. What, along those lines, and you and I were talking about this a little earlier today, like time management, right? And and trying to split your time between, hey, the business that I have today, going out and finding new business. What does that look like for you on like a typical day?
Yeah, so I try to get, my schedule is pretty straightforward. It's, when I first wake up, I want to get through the gym so that, like, the rest of the day, it's just, I can focus on work, right? It's just the only way it's ever worked for me.
What time do you get up?
So I used to get up at 4 a.m. every single day. I was in the gym by 5, done by like 6:30. Now it's like 6 a.m., maybe get to the gym by 7, done by 8, 8:30. But as long as I'm in front of my computer working by 9, 9:30, that's still perfect, right? And I don't have kids or anything to worry about, so that schedule works. But, by 9:30, I want to be, either like Mondays is on the phone with agents that I'm kind of going after, or, agents that I'm currently getting business from that might not have a deal in process right now, just touching base with them.
Sure.
Tuesdays is current pipeline. So anybody that's under contract, the attorney, listing agent, buyer's agent, borrowers, everybody gets a phone call from me. Even if I have no update because things are already done, I'm just calling to say hi because it's Tuesday, and you're going to remember that I'm going to talk to you every single Tuesday. I never miss the call. Wednesdays, it's past clients, which have been obviously a big thing with The rates have been higher the past couple of years. Keeping in touch with them so that when the refi boom comes, it's good that like I can look over. I did this yesterday. I looked through, I want to say 70 loans that I've had closed over the past, let's say year and a half. And I can go through that and say, I talked to 40 of those people and I got their buy-in that they're going to refinance with me when the time is right because they trust me.
Sure.
And the other 30, not that anyone's told me no, or hey, I've refied already. They just haven't gotten back in touch with me. But that capture rate is going to be insane, which is going to be something you're proud of, right? And then, Thursdays, and Wednesdays, Thursdays kind of flip flop, but then Thursdays is clients that are pre-approved that just might not be looking right now. I can call them with a market update, call them just to say hi, but I'm touching my business and growing it for 2-3 hours a day, really before I dive into my business now. And then for the rest of the day, it's, contacting people that, hey, Will, here's a lead, give them a call today, to other things that come up or putting out a fire or whatever. But my growth part happens like, all right, I'm at the gym, I'm growing mentally, physically, that's good. Then I tap into my business. I grow from, let's say 9:30 to 11:30 or 12 on those 4 things Monday through Thursday. And then the rest of the hours, it's there to kind of do what we do. So,
What's your favorite part of the business?
Honestly, my favorite part is, I want to say like the teaching part. I know it sounds crazy, but it doesn't pay the most by any means. Like obviously us going and getting the business and cultivating the relationship, closing it is obviously what we get paid to do. But having, training new loan officers and being able to give them the knowledge that I've learned, to talking to real estate agents and then being like, hey, Will, I'm just unsure about this. I mean, like, no problem. I'll walk you through it. And one of the things that I've constantly been told, and I don't know if it's the way that, I may have learned now going back to obviously working with family, I don't want to say you couldn't make the same mistake twice, but you were definitely more cautious of it. Yeah. And obviously when I worked with Bobby, it was, hey, I want you to, talk to my referral source, right? And it's a referral source you may have for 15 years. You cannot mess up when you get on that phone, especially at 21, 22 years old, fresh in the business, you can't be wrong.
Yeah.
So when I tell you I was super hard on myself to learn everything to be absolutely perfect, now that I'm able to teach the business, I think I just have a very hands-on approach, but the way I'm able to articulate what I'm trying to teach, I've been very blessed with. And I think a lot of people, I'll talk to clients that maybe have talked to 3 other lenders and they're like, just the way that you taught us about how to buy a house and the way you've kind of spoken to us, it just makes sense to us.
I think everybody needs to take a bit of an approach where at some point they've taught their craft, right? Because it makes you cognizant of what you need to do to fix, and it makes you better at it.
Yep.
Right. I personally, I hate training, right? Like it's like one of the things that and I think I like training the person who wants to learn.
That's
There's
the
just
thing.
so many people who don't.
Well, that's
right?
the point, right? It's like if you get somebody that's like, listen, I want to learn what you know or teach me this, and they're full on asking questions and stuff, there's nothing better.
Yeah, I'll do a Q&A all day.
But if I'm sitting there and I'm talking to somebody that I know has, nothing in this, they don't really care to learn, at that point, I'm losing money because we're wasting time.
Yeah, they're just looking for they're looking for a paycheck, and it's not like they're not driven to like get better. And that's probably the tough part about training with me, but I love the ops side where like I'm problem solving and working through files or working through like, how do we solve this problem that we have, or implementing a new system. Like there's that side of it's exciting to me.
Yep.
The sales comes easier for me just because personable, can talk to people, can like that side like comes pretty easy. I don't like going out to try to get business like from a sales perspective. I think it takes a certain person to be able to like to be really good at that, and that's definitely a character trait that I envy, because I don't have that drive. But like you could dump a bunch of crap on me and I'll figure it out, right?
Yep.
Like I think that's.
Well, I think that's where we're
like
pretty similar too. Like I'm not one to be like, all right, I want to go to a realtor event, 50 random agents I've never talked to, and I'll walk out knowing 10 people that gave me their card, I'm going to get their business. That's never how I grew my business. It's let me teach you so much where you're going to tell 10, 15 people, and then I'll get business from that.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I've always kind of, probably from like the first time that I met you, and Matt's very similar the same way, is we go into corporate for training, and I remember we sat down in this room, and you guys came in, and it was kind of like instantly I can kind of tell if somebody is bullshitting me or not from what they're trying to teach. And I will say the way that you and Matt kind of conduct yourself and the way you speak, you guys know everything and anything that you're teaching where you, like, the way you're coming off, because it's true, there's not a single person in that room that's going to ask you a question you don't know the answer to.
Right.
And that's kind of been the way that you've helped run our company too, is you'll never, and this is through COVID times to 45-day turn times to any problem you guys can possibly imagine, you've been able to get on a call with, let's say, 50 loan officers, right? All high-end managers at the time were making the most money we've ever made in our life. Everyone has a million and one reasons why any other company would want them and everything. And you get on this call and you have to be cool and calm and collected, which you always do a great job of, even though people are screaming at you and the chat's going off and all of this stuff, to underwriters that are working remote that aren't doing anything, like anything and everything you could throw at you guys. And you guys handled it with such class and professionalism. You didn't bullshit a single thing about it. Everything was so well thought out of, here's the problem we have, guys. Here's how I plan to solve it. If you guys have better ideas, let me hear them. But just the way that you guys kind of carried yourself through there, and that was obviously through crazy times, but that's kind of how you guys do anything and everything in this business.
Yeah, I mean, listen, transparency has always been key. I think the one big thing that I've always instilled in our team, and, you know, Matt, I'll tell you a story about when I first met Matt. But one of the things is, like, be okay with change, right? Like, shit's going to change, and it's going to change a lot, and it's going to change, you know, whether it's a regulatory change of how we do business, or it's something like a pandemic that we couldn't even consider, or how about, like, after the pandemic when the faucet gets shut off and you're like standing there like, hey, we have to make a change, right? And you can't put your head in the sand and just be like, oh, it's going to get better one day. Like, let's make the change, right? Let's figure out what we have to do to make changes. Let's figure out how to reinvent ourselves. And you said that earlier, like, you're constantly reevaluating the situation and being fully okay with making the change.
Yep.
There's too many people in our business and in the real estate community as a whole that are so used to doing it their way that they can't make that pivot. And the world is pivoting, right? The world is changing. The technology changes things. The regulatory environment changes things. So we have to be able to pivot from it. And that's always been my thing with any of it, right? It's like, hey, I'm going to be honest with everybody, but you're going to know I'm working on it. Yep. Right. And I would hope that you trust that I'm working on it. But by the way, if you want to help, come on over. Like, I'm all about that.
Well, that's the thing, right? And it's like, yeah, the position that you're in, right? You could say arguably like, hey guys, I'm in this position. So yes, it's on me to try to figure out. But you also aren't a one-way problem solver being like, well, my way is the way it's going to work. You'll give suggestions and you'll give data as in, this is why we need to do it this way, which then everybody kind of that has their own opinion kind of sit back and be like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
We trust Joe. He's looked into this. He actually has the data. He's very,
I love our team, right? I think that's, I can't say enough about, like, the Gabby and Walter and, Rick and Bobby and like all, John, Matt, like everybody's so in tuned and, Ben, like the whole team, everybody's very in tuned with like their job and they're really good at it. So, surrounding ourselves with that type of team makes that job really easy, right? Like that's really what it comes down to is like, I've just been blessed with having people like yourself, people like, the call we had today, like everybody's like super professional. They understand their business. They're diving into it. So that changes the game, right? Because it's not a one-person show. There's nothing that I can do to fix anything without everybody working together. Yep. And, that takes a little bit of a mentality change for a lot of people. And but it makes a difference when collectively we're aiming for a goal. Quick story with Matt. When I first met Matt, I was a consultant for Ellie Mae at the time. And I went into their office. They were in an old office, and it was during when TRID was first rolled out in like 2015. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to clean up Absolute's environment, right? Because we're like, we had all these new forms, they had all these rules. It was like a hot mess, right? And I'm coming like, Matt, I think we have to like delete a lot of this crap, right? And like, without hesitation, he just starts deleting things in like a live environment. And like, I'm like somewhat panicking, and I'm like, okay, I can get down with this, right? Yep. And that's like our running joke now is like, you remember that day when I just started deleting things? And now like the role flips sometimes. Sometimes I just go in and delete things or like moving rules around or making changes, and he's like, "We can't do this." But yeah, like you have to be okay with kind of making those changes and pivots and adjustments. Like it's literally a daily basis at this point.
Yep.
I do want to touch on a bit about kind of like what your next steps are here. So you doing well with the mortgage thing. It's kind of like you're full time, right? You're fully engulfed in that.
Yep.
But I know you've been on a bit of a health and wellness journey for almost 2.5 years now, 3 years.
Really 2020 actually. It was February
Okay,
2020.
so almost 4 years now.
Yep.
How'd that get started? Like, what was your...
So that's probably one of my favorite things like that I've gone through so far in life is so always big into fitness as far as like I love to work out. I didn't love to eat right, but I love to work out. I love to actually go to the gym, lift stuff up. This is fun. Go back home, kind of eat whatever I want. Well, it came up that this guy that I've been following at that time, so 2020, probably since 2012, I was following this guy, Corey Gregory. And at the time I saw him he owned a huge supplement company, which was Muscle Farm, which they were in UFC, like they sponsored On the Mat. They were a $200 million company. And I watched him kind of go through like a very little company and grow this huge, massive company, but he was always personable, everything, gave me workouts and stuff, on Twitter and online like he did everybody else. And I always did the workouts. Well, out of nowhere, he ends up selling off with Muscle Farm, starts his own company up, and he wants to do one-on-one training. And at the time I followed him in his app, which was like $7 a month. And he was like, all right, I'm actually going to do personal training. I'm only taking on 5 clients. I think it was like $400 or $500 a month. And I remember like seeing that. I was like, I have to take this opportunity. And I was like, it's $500 a month. But I was like, but I have to do it. And I've never done personal training. I've always got the workouts from him. Learned my form's always been good and everything. I just didn't eat right, but he could help me. So 2020, start with him. Within 30 days, I think I'm down from like 225 to like 210, right? So things are going good. I'm eating clean. Then I'm down to like 200. COVID hits. So now I'm like, all right, well, now what do I do? And I remember he was like, all right, well, see what gym equipment you can get for your house. And there was nothing. Everything was so expensive. And at the place that I lived at the time, there was a gym downstairs. They let me actually take two 20s and 2 10s and keep them in my apartment until COVID was done, which thankfully they did because they were impossible to get elsewhere. So he created these workouts for me for those, let's say 5 months, no gym, where I literally worked out in my living room every single day.
I remember like right at the beginning of COVID, we like got the Peloton, like my wife and I, we set up the gym in the house. Like we had some stuff beforehand. But yeah, it was impossible to find anything.
And then Facebook Marketplace, people had like the rusty weights from high school,
Yeah,
and they're like $150 for this 10-pound thing. People are buying it.
It's like $4 a pound.
Literally.
For weights,
and it literally has rust and everything else on it.
Yes.
But then I remember I go to the grocery store to get food, and at the time I was on like ground turkey chicken. You couldn't get anything. So then we were like trying to, mix things up. But, through 2020, I end up, I think probably by like end of summer or whatever, I'm in like the best shape of my life at the time. I think I was like 185. Business is still booming, right? So I go from producing maybe $20 million a year in business to 50. No assistant, just me working out of my house, right? So it's like I would get up, because it's COVID time, I think I was up at like 3 a.m, working out, done by like 4:30. And then I would just sit at my computer from like 5:30 until 11 o'clock the next night.
Sure.
So it was just crazy times or whatever. But, I had a goal in mind, and I was like, all right, listen, and he's coached me through the months, and, my body weight is kind of staying there. And I was like, listen, like, here's my business goal. If I hit 50 million, I want to buy myself my dream watch. And he had the same watch, which was a gold presidential Rolex. And he was like, listen, all right, that's your goal. Keep it in your mind. And meanwhile, at the time, I think I had to close like a ridiculous amount of business in the last 3 months to hit it. And I did at the end of December, I ended up hitting it where it was like 50,500,000 in business. Like I hit it, the last refi cleared for the end of the new year. Great. So I ended up going to get my dream watch. And he's like, there's something that comes with this. And I was like, all right, well, what comes with this? And he's like, if you're going to be able to wear this watch every day, you have to he's like, because the only thing, we looked at my first year of fitness, and he's like, you did everything you were supposed to, but you didn't do your cardio, which for him was half a mile of lunges every day. Because the one thing it does a little bit different from running, in his opinion, was it wouldn't eat up your muscle. It would help your legs get bigger. You get stronger. He's done it. It's, it's tested. It's proven. Let's do it. So he was like, you have to do a half a mile lunges every day. Take a picture of your Apple Watch or of you being done with it, and then you could take a picture of your watch. And I did this every day. So I start like January 4th or 5th or whatever, like that. And I start doing it. I get the watch and I start taking the picture and I start doing it. And like, little did I know, like, it was holding me more and more accountable. And next thing you know, a couple months go by and I no longer have to take a picture because it's just something that I've ingrained and I've been doing. Right. So then, but then I slowly start to look and my body weight's dropping, body fat's dropping. I'm getting stronger.
I remember following you on that when you were posting the every day.
Every day I would post a selfie, but so I started like 90 days in. I was like, all right, instead of sending him this picture, like, I'm going to post it right now. I'm going to tell the world that I'm doing this. So every day, like 5:30 in the morning, my picture would go up and that was always the story. So 90 days, 100, like next
How much
thing
did it suck, like the first 3 times you did that?
You literally couldn't walk the next day. So, but the one thing it taught me is like, you can do it. It's going to suck. And the one thing with doing a half a mile every day and not like timed was some days it would take me 45 minutes. Some days it would take me 25. It was crazy to see your body fluctuate. But after like 90 days of doing it, it just became something I did no matter what. So then going through the days, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, my body fat's down to like 7%. You know, if I was going away on a trip, I would just tighten up my diet a little bit, but I always had the cardio side. So now I can like play with my body and know what I was going to be able to get it to whenever I wanted to. So next thing you know, it just becomes the thing where now all of a sudden, like anybody I talk to in real estate, anything, like they just see it. Or if I haven't seen somebody in like a couple months, they're like, are you still lunging? Like every single day. Yeah. So whether I was on vacation, whether I was visiting family, it was raining, snowing, because you could do them anywhere because it was just body weight at the time, you know, whatever, would end up doing it. But the kind of thing it taught me during that is like, you really could just do something every day and like just get really good at it, which is obviously the easy stuff. But it was like the stuff that I went through during that, like personal stuff that easily could have just been like, I'm not doing it today, to having surgery and being like, all right, they're going to take me like an hour and a half to do them because I barely can like actually go into a lunge, but I still did it. Towards the very end, I ended up getting, a bunch of my whole tattoo like done. And I remember it being like wrapped with the tattoo the next day and being like, oh, this is going to suck. But I would just still do it. So what it kind of taught me is like anything that does come up in life, and I haven't had that crazy of a life with having kids or anything like that. So it's kind of just been like, I get up and I kind of do whatever I want to do. That it taught me that there's things that'll come up in life, but as long as you have a goal in mind, you can always do it.
Yeah. I mean, I live a very crazy life, 2 kids, they're in a ton of sports, obviously married. Just we have a lot going on every day.
Yep.
And I'm training for my first marathon in December. And like, it's a nightmare to find time. Like I'm literally exhausted trying to run 5-6 miles, in my garage on, your random Tuesday night. Like, and it's I can tell the difference whether I run in the morning or I run at night, or like you can find but you just have to try to get it done because you do put something in the tank every time, right?
Exactly.
Whether it takes you an hour and a half or like, I'm slow because I'm 210 pounds, but like if I'm running a 11.5-minute mile versus a 10-minute mile, like I don't care. I'm just trying to get it through and work as hard as I can and have that feel where I'm putting something in the tank. But yeah, agree with you 100%. Like if you want to do it, you can find the time.
Yep.
Like we had that part of our conversation earlier today too. It was like, hey, like nobody's that busy, right? Like I get everybody has things going on and everybody has a million reasons why they probably shouldn't or don't want to do something. But if that's, first of all, I think when it comes to people's health and wellness, they need to get their shit together.
Yep.
Right? Like we know too much today to ignore it.
And everything is so accessible today, where in the past it wasn't.
Right.
So whether it's like you want to work out from home, you don't have any weights, to, you could throw on a T25 and just do body weight stuff and still lose a bunch of weight. Like there's so many different things.
Throw a backpack on and go for a walk.
Yep.
Right.
Like we know so much about our health and everything. We can wear an Apple Watch and track anything that's going on with our body to know what we're doing is not right.
Right.
Right. If we're going down,
just
obviously the other
metabolically
path.
not healthy. Right. And,
yep.
So I think that to me, and first of all, like prioritizing that everybody has a lot going on, but prioritizing yourself and your health and just wellness in general, even if it's like a small change that you could or need to make, I think it's really important because like you want to be here for the future, right? You want to be here for maybe one day to have a family or to see what's next in your business world, right? And it's like,
well, and I think too on the business side of things, like if you show up for a meeting and you're an in shape guy or something, like you're already giving off the vibes of like somebody that takes care of themselves and runs a good business.
I agree.
Right? Like if I show up and I'm, sloppy and let's say you have a stain on my shirt or, whatever it is, like to me, and it could just be the people that I surround myself with, but instantly I would kind of get a turn off on the business side of things. Cause I'm like, if that's how you take care of yourself, I can't imagine how you take care of your business.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I agree. There's certainly no downside to it. Right.
Yep.
Like there's no downside to being in shape that I've ever seen, right? Other than
the work that you have to put in,
the work
constantly.
You have to put into it. But
it always, you benefit in the long run of just the way you feel in the other 23 hours of the day are worth the 1 hour that it sucks.
Yes. I think exercise, the benefits around exercise, whether you're just doing lunges or you're hitting the gym or you're running, like I don't care how people do it, right? I think everybody's body type's a little bit different and you respond to different things. Like genetically, like my body loves lifting weights, hates running.
Yep.
But like,
but some people love to run and they hate doing the other thing.
Doing the other thing, right? So I think it's just a matter of finding what you like. And then by the way, like sometimes doing what you hate feels really good, right? Like when I'm up to right around like 12 or 13 miles, like for my long runs, for my, like when I finish doing an 11 or 12 mile run sucks like the whole time.
Yep.
It sucks as much the first mile for me as it does the 11th.
Yep.
But when I'm done, it's amazing, right? Yep. Even like the soreness in my legs, like I like it. So you start to find the joy in some of that and like building that habit out, right? I don't subscribe to like it takes 2 weeks to build a habit. Like no, like it still sucks.
Yep.
Right? Like if you're trying to just challenge yourself constantly or beat a time or get better, like it's gonna suck. And
that's like with the lunges, right? Like it never got easy all the way till day 1,000 when I stopped.
Right.
It never I never had a time where I went through it and was like, yeah, maybe it felt better than it did the day before. Or the timing was better. Yeah. But it was still hard and still sucked.
Sure.
But kind of where all that tied into the business side of things was, so I hired this guy who's my mentor for 8 years that I looked up to. He partnered with Schwarzenegger and got Schwarzenegger to release his first supplement. Like he was the actual guy to sell him on it. Right. So this guy I looked up to, ends up becoming my one-on-one coach. Beautiful. For a year or two. And then, one of his partners ends up wanting to get bought out. So I remember I was one of his phone calls that night where he calls me at like 7:00 at night and I answer the phone and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he presents this offer to me of, would you want to buy into our supplement company and be business partners together? And it was the fastest yes that I could get out. Now I know the business is profitable and all that, and obviously looked into it, but to know that like, it's crazy how back to 2012, I'm watching this guy on Twitter to in college doing like test samples for them sometimes at Costco to make $100 on like a weekend, to then hiring him as my one-on-one trainer, getting in the best shape of my life, helping build my business at the same time because he helped with both, to then, and still today we're business partners and good friends. Right. So pretty cool full story.
Yeah, that's definitely a cool, like to see the progression of it. What's the name of the supplement company?
Max Effort Muscle.
Okay. And mostly online, or where do you guys?
Yeah, so we're all direct, but we're based out of Ohio, but now we've partnered with, Ohio State University to Marshall to Florida State University, where we provide their supplements to them. So now we're subscription based and just growing pretty rapidly.
What's the kind of go-to supplements that you guys have found good formulas with? Is it like the proteins,
Yeah, I would say your basic like proteins, aminos, pre-workout, and we have a stim-free fat burner, which one thing that's a lot of people hate with fat burners is, hey, I'm sweating, it's too much energy, now I'm kind of crashing. We have a stim-free version, which gives you all the benefits, but doesn't get you the crash. So
that's awesome. Now I've kind of gotten more into like looking at the supplements and stuff, and I think that's like it's a pretty crazy world.
It is, like, and it's a dirty world, right? I guess any sales thing and mortgages and all that stuff too, but supplements is one of the things because it's not, really tested by anybody unless you're going to sell to colleges. Then you got to go through a ridiculous amount of stuff.
Because all the NSF, like all the
the NSF, and you got to go through
stuff,
they'll measure every little thing to a T. Nothing can be off.
Right.
So that if that athlete gets popped, they can be like, hey, it wasn't this supplement because it's an NSF certified.
the NSF. That's what
But if you look at all the stuff that's not, like all the stuff that GNC sells and everything, like 90% of that's not.
Right.
They just kind of throw things in there, and it's not until it'll go through testing and stuff that all of a sudden you'll see something get pulled off the shelf.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute, I was taking that for 3 months. It's like, what was in it? And then you look and it's like, oh, well, this could have been turned into a drug if they added one more ingredient. And you're like, well, that's not good.
Performance enhanced. They consider it performance enhancing, and or you mix these two together and no dice, right?
Exactly.
No, that's awesome. So, what's the future hold for Will?
So obviously continue doing the mortgage thing. It's something that I love and I get up every day. And although sales is always tough, right, everyone can love sales because you love the relationships, you love the money you make and stuff. Like obviously it's always hard, but what I love about it is it constantly changes. Like no day is ever going to be the same, no matter how much you plan it out. So obviously the future is going to be sticking to the mortgage side, continuing to grow the business. Obviously eventually want to be a $100 million producer, right? That's going to be the ultimate, all right, hey, $100 million a year in business, have people under me.
Hurdle for you.
Yeah, to teach in the business and stuff and kind of pass that on. And I was lucky enough to kind of start it and learn it at a young age. So by the time I could be 45, 50 years old, then I want to jump to the corporate side of things and help run everything while feeding a bunch of people under me. On that side of things, obviously stay with the fitness and stuff. And when fitness is where it needs to be and the business is where it needs to be, because the two correlate, the rest of the stuff falls in place. So
it's awesome. No, I think it's been obviously awesome working with you over the last 5 years. So
right back at you.
I'm excited to see where the business grows for you, because it's probably one of the few loan officers, like I said, that has actually you could see a trajectory on it, and that's been awesome. And then just having you come in and work closely with us, do the trainings, help bring new loan officers in and have somebody to look up to is massive. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that very much.
No, this was awesome. I appreciate you coming out. I think we'll continue to do this, and we'll put another podcast together and see what next year has for you.
I love it. Cool. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks for coming out, Will.
Of course. Thank you.